Hello class, welcome to this video on lesson 3.4. So we're going to be covering the homework problems on Canvas for 3.4, which is essentially reviewing all the transformations that we discussed, in addition to glide reflections. So here the first question asks, what sequence of reflections will produce an image equivalent to a rotation 180 about the origin? So basically it's combining the different transformations in order to see if we get something equivalent to a rotation of 180. So remember that a rotation of 180 about the origin, the rule for that was that the x and the y change signs. Okay, so we got negative x, negative y. So if we think of them in terms of the coordinates, and if we do both transformations and we get this, then we know that it's equivalent. Okay, so reflection about the x-axis. Know that performing a reflection about the x-axis, the rule for that is that it transforms the y coordinate, right? So the x stays the same, but the y coordinate changes to the opposite sign. So if I did the first round of, if I did this for the first round, then I would get x negative y. But if I did it again and I did another reflection about the x-axis, well, now this time I'm doing it for x negative y, right? So I'm doing it for this coordinate instead. If I do it again and run it through the same transformation, well, then the y changes sign, because the rule states that it goes from xy to x negative y, so it just changes sign. So x stays the same, but I'm going to introduce another negative here. But we know that a double negative makes that into a positive. Really, I go back to the same spot. So really, this is not what we want. We want it to be negative x, negative y, right? This is what we want. Okay, so I'll box that because that's what we want. All right, so clearly that's not the transformation that we want. Reflection across the y and then reflection across the y. Well, the rule for reflection across the y, remember that the rule for that was xy maps to or transforms to negative xy. So if I were to take this and go to the first round, right, and do a reflection about the y-axis, well, I get negative xy. But if I were to do that again and go another round, a reflection about the y-axis again, so let's go ahead and write that here. If I'm doing another reflection about the y-axis, and then followed by another reflection about the y-axis, well, then that's going to change this to a double negative, right? Because x changes sign, but the double negative is positive. So it gets me back to the original. It doesn't do anything. So this is not what we want, right? So let's try again. Let's try another one. Reflection across the x and then reflection across the y. So let's do that right here. So if I were to do a reflection across the x, right? So this is a reflection across the x. Well, then that means that the y is going to change. And then if I follow that up with a reflection about the y, well, then what's going to happen? Then it's going to change the x coordinate, right? The x is going to change to negative. Is this what we want? Yes, this is what we want. This is actually the exact same transformation as negative x, negative y. So that matches up with this nicely. So this looks like a worthy transformation or sequence of transformations that will be equivalent to 180. Let's do another one. Reflection across the x and then reflection across y equals x. So reflection across x first. Well, that'll just give us x negative y. Then we transform that, we reflect that across y equals x. Remember that the rule for y equals x is that you switch x and y, right? So you switch these. So you get negative y, x. Okay, so this is not the transformation that we want. We want it to be negative x, negative y. So no, this is not what we want. So definitely not that one. Reflection across y, then reflection across x. So reflection across y well, the x is going to change to negative, the opposite sign, I mean. And then reflection across x, well, the y is going to change. So is this what we want? The answer is yes, that is what we want, negative x, negative y. And so we have two sequence of transformations that, when performed, are equivalent to a rotation of 180 about the origin. All right, so let's look at the next problem. What sequence of two rigid motions map ABC to A prime, B prime, C prime? So basically, what two things do we need to do to get from this triangle to this triangle in red? Okay, so this is 1, this is 2. We want to get from 1 to 2. All right, so reflection across the x-axis and then reflection across the y-axis. Let's see if that holds up. So we reflect this across the x and then y. So this is the x. If I reflect that about there, that's 2 units away, 2 units away. 1 unit away, 1 unit away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units away, 5 units away. Okay, so that's that triangle right there. And then I next reflected about the y-axis. So that's 1 unit away, 1 unit away. Clearly, I'm going to stop here because it's not lined up with this red triangle, this triangle on the left. So it doesn't line up if I reflect it. You can see that it doesn't line up. So I'm going to stop here and say, no, that's not the transformation we're looking for. All right, so reflection, so this now this one. Reflection across the y and then reflection across, and then a translation. So this means that you're going 7 left. All right, so let's see if that makes sense. So reflection across the y and then 7 left. Reflection across the y. 1 unit there, 1 unit there, 3 units there, 3 units here. Five units there, 5 units there. Next, we're going to translate it 7 units to the left. So if I move that to the left, I do not get this bottom triangle. So I'm going to stop there and say, no, that does not make sense. It will not work out. It's not that one. All right, so now let's look at the next one. Reflection across the x and then a translation to the left. Let's see if that works. Reflection across the x. Okay. So if I take that and move it left 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That lines up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That lines up. That lines up perfectly. And so therefore this does work out. This is the sequence of transformations that we are seeking. All right, so now the next one. Suppose M is the line with y equals -4 and A prime, B prime, C prime is mapped to the double prime by applying a reflection across line M. So this is line M, y equals -4, followed by a translation. Okay, so we're doing a reflection across line M followed by a translation. Translation is 3 to the right. So 3 to the right. Okay, so let's go ahead. So they go ahead and show this to us. This is the one that we're transforming, and we want to transform it to with that transformation. Okay, so it says that we're reflecting about y equals -4 first. So let's do that. Y equals -4 is right here. This is the line y equals -4. So you have to know how that equation looks like. Okay, if you don't know that, you're going to get this wrong. So y equals -4 is a horizontal line that cuts through -4. And now we can reflect it. So this is 1 unit away from there, so it has to be 1 unit away here. So far. Then I have to, let's go ahead and do that. So that reflects here. Then what do I have to do next? I have to, let me just draw it out. So this is going to be A. And then this is 2 units away here. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this right here in blue is my triangle when I reflected about y equals -4. So this is A prime. This is B prime. This is C. Or, well, no. I'll just call it A, B, and C. Okay, so I'm going to just call it A, B, and C. Because this is not a double prime. Because we first need to, so the question said, reflect followed by a translation. Okay, so we want to do a translation. So let's do this. Now this means move it to the right. So take each of these points, move it to the right. 1, 2, 3. That's my A double prime. 1, 2, 3. That's my B double prime. 1, 2, 3. That's my C double prime. So this is my triangle A double prime, B double prime, and C double prime. So you can see that the coordinates for A double prime are -1, -3. B double prime, the coordinates for that are -2, -6. And C double prime, 1, -7. That's how you figure out the coordinates for the sequence of transformations for this problem. All right, what are the coordinates of the image after the sequence of transformations? So reflection across the y equals 2, and then rotation 270 degrees clockwise, counterclockwise. So across y equals 2. So, and then these other coordinates. So it helps to draw this out. So let's go ahead and draw this out real quick. So we have 1, 3. Okay, so this is my figure here. And so we're going to reflect that across y equals 2. So y equals 2 is a horizontal line that looks like this. And the coordinates of C are at 2. Okay, so C is actually on that line. If C is on that line, then that means it's going to stay on that line when we reflect it. Now this one, on the other hand, if we reflect it here, it'll go down here 1 unit. And so this will be C prime. This will be J prime. R is going to go, R looks like it's 1, 2, 3 units away. So it's going to be 3 units away down. 1, 2, 3. So this will be R prime. And then U is 3 units away as well. So U prime is right there. So this is how the figure looks like reflected. So that's a reflection across y equals 2. Now we want to do a rotation 270 degrees counterclockwise. So the rule for that, remember that the rule for 270 counter, and I'll go ahead and write down the rule here, is that xy transforms to y negative x. Okay, so it's going to be y negative x. So, which means that we're going to be transforming these coordinates. So u, right now the coordinates of u are 0, -1. That's going to transform to, see here, let's switch it. So switch it, change the sign of the second one, so it's just going to be 0. This will be -1, 0. This is going to be u prime, u double prime, I mean, because this is already u prime. R prime, the coordinates of R prime right here is 1, -1. So using that transformation rule, you switch x and y. The x, there's a negative in front of that x. So -1 right there. -1, -1. That'll be my R double prime. Now for C, C is 3 and 2. So 3, 2 is going to transform to to 3, you switch it, and then the second number changes to opposite. So it's going to be -3. So 2, -3. 1, 2, 3. Right here. That's going to be C double prime. Now, and then the last one is J. So J is 1, 1. So 1, 1. You flip that, you still get 1, 1. And then change the sign of this guy, so 1, -1. That would be J double prime. So now we're going to go ahead and sketch this. And there you go. So there's my coordinates. So it reflects. Then it rotates 270 degrees counterclockwise about the origin. So we take this and we rotate it 270 degrees that way. That's the shape that we get. So it looks like the coordinates of R, so let me label this. This one was J, right? J double prime. This one was, yeah, so that was J double prime. This was R double prime. And then this one was C double prime, so on. So the one that matches up with it let's see here. So we got -1, 0. Oh, this one was U double prime. Okay, so we got U double prime, which is -1, 0. Or I guess they call it U prime. It doesn't really matter. R prime or R double prime is -1, -1. Like that. C is 2, -3, and then the last one's 1, -1. And so this is clearly what we're looking for. All right, true or false? When performing a sequence of transformations, the order matters. Is that true or false? So this is true. When you perform a sequence of transformations, order matters if you're not doing translations. So if you're doing 2 translations together, let's say a translation 1, 0, then a translation -2, -3, it does not matter if you're reversing it when you're doing translations in different orders. However, when you're doing something like a translation or something else, right? If you're doing a translation right after you do a reflection, or a reflection first, then a translation, or a translation first, then a reflection, I mean, then here these are not going to be equal to each other if you reverse it. So that is true. All right, guys, that is going to be it for the homework assignment. It's just 5 questions. Next class, we'll go ahead and do more review of the chapter as a whole. Make sure that you study your transformation rules, and that you do a bunch of practice similar to this, and try practicing the graphing as well. Take care, guys, and as usual, I'll see you in the next one.